Let's get this show on the road. It's three after. People are still trickling in. We'll let them do that. They'll do that through the whole, through the whole webinar. People just find their way in, 5, 10, 15 minutes in, but no big deal. Just as a reminder to everybody, I'm going to record it. It may or may not work. Hopefully it will. They've been recording. They've been working pretty well lately. So GoTo webinar seems to have their act together with it finally. So after this, we will get you guys the recording. We're going to go through this presentation, everybody, and you should have a GoTo webinar icon somewhere on your desktop or on your screen, somewhere your monitor. And in there, you should be able to answer or ask questions. And so as we go through, if a question comes to mind, go ahead and plop it in there. We're going to try and get through this thing in about, what would you say, that all of it maybe about 30, 40 minutes, maybe something like that, Adam? About?
Yeah, actually it's designed to go 45 minutes
Okay,
to an hour, but I can chunk. There's some parts of KPI and performance measurements that we can chunk out that
sure.
may not be as relative, so we can chunk it down to 45. That's what you
Yeah,
need to do.
yeah. Let's go to 45. That way, these guys can get on with their day. And we'll say after 45, we'll have about 5 minutes of um, answering questions, that type of a thing. Now, remember, if we don't answer your question, don't worry, because as you've put them in, it has logged them into the system, and then at the end of this, Lone Tech and Adam's team will have all those questions. They know who you are, and so they'll give you a call and answer your question for you directly if it didn't get answered. So we've got that going. So with that, I am Frank Garay, co-host of the National Real Estate Post. I'm here with Adam Stein, who is one of the co-owners. Are you? What nowadays with Lone Tech, or who are you with Lone Tech these days? I know you guys have gone through a lot
So,
of
so
big
post
growth and changes.
acquisition.
Yeah.
Yeah, post acquisition, our company was acquired by a large publicly traded company by the name of Bankrate.
Hmm.
I'm a founder and CEO of Lone Tech.
Okay.
But we still do the same thing. It's just bank rate happens to like very much what we do, and we help lenders connect every day with online consumers in a myriad of ways.
Okay, great. And that's what we have pitched to everybody that, and we kind of took, before I kick you off here, just give me 10 more, 15 more seconds. We kind of saw this as, when you presented it to us, first of all, we were like, wow, that's totally awesome. Okay. And the other thing we realized is that, this really is an important piece to have in your mortgage origination business. It's critical, in fact, because the millennials that are coming up, we all know they're the future, and they're going to be the biggest group of home buyers we've ever had in the United States. And these guys, they do everything online. They research everything, and that's going to include rates. You know,
Yeah.
so it's critical that you have easily accessible to home buyers, not only today but in the very near future. A way for people to research a rate that is accurate from you, from your company. And so it's definitely something that needs to be implemented into the business. People have to be able to, especially as millennials, they have to be able to go to wherever you direct them, or if they find you, or whatever the case may be, and put in their data and get the result. That's what they're used to. That's how they think. That's how they operate. I put in data, I get a result, and that's what they're after. And that's what you guys kind of bring to the table here. So why don't you go ahead and take it away and show these guys what you got. I may pop in here and there and just ask you a quick question as you go. Okay?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for the introduction, Frank. And
Yeah.
so everybody that's here, it looks like we've got about 110 people or so in the room right now. I want to thank you all for coming to this webinar. My name is Adam Stein. I'm the founder of Lone Tech, if you didn't get that. And you should all give yourselves a nice warm pat on the back. The fact is presumably everybody is in this go-to meeting to learn about improving their business processes. And if I can in any way lend information that helps you do that, then I'm happy to do so. A little bit about my experience. I started in the mortgage industry in 1992. I became obsessed with online consumerism and mortgage in 98. I've run everything from mortgage banking and to mortgage brokering operations. At the end of the heyday when we spun off Lone Tech's predecessor in 2007, I was licensed in 12 states out of Seattle, Washington. We had a network of 256 real estate agents in those 12 states that were accepting real estate referrals from our real estate division from consumers that we were getting on the mortgage side and pre-qualifying for houses. I can go into that. We'll talk about some of the practices, how we do those kinds of things. But just on a purchase business, for the mortgage folks in here, if you're getting online purchase business, you might know this already, but that online consumer is not nearly as valuable until you connect it with a real estate agent who's actually going to put it in a car and make it valuable. So what follows in this presentation is a high-level view of everything from why you need to look at internet marketing to where your customer might be, your next customer might live on the internet, what you'll need to have depending on how you go about trying to take that customer down and contact them, and then some simple measurements of how essentially that you might measure those results. So without further ado, let's talk about why internet marketing. And let's make sure my PowerPoint is working here, and it is.
Yep.
So back in the day, Frank, you've been around long enough. If you were running a mortgage brokerage shop or mortgage banking shop, you would buy big, expensive monthly Yellow Pages ads, as much space as you could afford, and that would make your phone ring. I don't believe anybody really has with the exception of maybe Grandma Ethel, right? Most people no longer have the 3-inch brick of a phone book on their desk.
Right.
It's not where consumers shop any longer. What you have is you have the internet, where everybody's shopping for their goods and services predominantly, and they're shopping, on their desktops, and more predominantly, you see the biggest increase in personal devices and mobile. And the great thing about the internet, if you're a savvy internet marketer, you can market to broad groups and spectrums of people like you see on your screen, or you can get specific to the consumer genre that you're after and the attributes that you're after. So that's the change at a high level that's happening in the internet. And now we're going to start talking about what do you need, right? How do I get there from here? And so in this section, we're going to talk about what kind of website skills you might need and what kind of designs you might require and what kind of technology stacks you might need. And then once you get those things in, making sure that you've actually got some of the analytics and accounting and management to make sure that what you've put forward is in fact correct for what you're trying to do. So here's where we start. This is my dude, where's my loan screen. So I think at a high level, you have to understand what traffic sources are out there. And there's a number of different traffic sources. Each traffic source has its own ramp-up time, and they each have their different technical requirements. So when we start looking at that, we might look at, it's things like pay-per-click. For those of you who aren't familiar with pay-per-click campaigns, these are campaigns where you invest in places where consumers shop. It might be Facebook, it might be Google AdWords, it might be Bankrate, it could be banner impressions is another way of doing this. You buy so many millions of impressions. And in pay-per-click campaigns, you're essentially paying to get your information in front of a consumer who might be in a domain that's commonly related to real estate or finance, right? Or on sites like Facebook, on social media sites, you can say, hey, anybody who Facebook you think is a renter, right, who's over the age of 25, who fits some of these various demographics, I want to make sure that person sees my advertisement. So that's sort of how pay-per-click works. And then you either pay for every time they click on that advertisement, which directs them to your website, or you pay for so many impressions. It might be a banner that goes across the top of the site, and you pay X number of dollars for $1,000, or somebody has 1,000 impressions, right, or 1,000,000 impressions, where somebody has the opportunity to click on that. The other common way of getting in front of consumers is pay-per-action. Pay-per-action is a little bit simpler on a conversion site because you're really actually paying for somebody to collect a lead for you, right? So, Zillow, LendingTree, there's a number of companies that do this, and the difference between them is really a lot of these pay-per-action aggregators, they're either buying pay-per-click space in many cases to get consumers into theirs where they are actually very efficiently converting those consumers into leads, or in some cases, they're using SEO, search engine optimization, by content to draw those consumers to them, where they actually create a lead. So the difference in technology, and we'll get into this a little bit later, in the pay-per-click, you actually have to sort of measure your expense on clicks and also measure how you're taking those clicks into conversions and how your website is actually integrating with those clicks. On the pay per action, somebody's already doing that for you, and you're really just buying somebody who's already clicked and converted into a lead. Some of the differences are exclusivity. Today's online consumer really values exclusivity. So if you can get an exclusive pay-per-action lead for essentially the same price or less than you can make your own exclusive action, a pay-per-click campaign, you're doing well, but those are some of the trade-offs between the two. So social media. Social media is a really big area. Some good things about social media. It creates current content, which if done correctly breeds SEO. It's a way of getting a lot of followers. I think it works better from a business to consumer standpoint than business to consumer, with the exception of LinkedIn. And I look at social media as sort of like the sweat equity, if you will, right? It's a sweat equity of online marketing. It's going to require a lot of content, right? And the content's got to be fresh, and you've got to have some sophisticated mechanisms of pushing it out. There are some companies out there that will do content for you, but be careful about whether it's really original content to you, because Google's not dumb, right? Google's going to look and say, this content was put over here first, so we're going to credit that site with that content, and then we saw it replicated all the way over here, which is lesser content. So unless you're willing to write a lot of good local content about your product or service, or national content, whatever it is that you're trying to position your company for, you might look at hiring maybe a college student as an intern or something, and give them topical things to write about, so you get original content. And then if that content is valued to your audience, you're going to find people start wanting to access that link, and you'll get backlinks where people are referencing your content, and all of those things make your information more valuable to Google. Google says, hey, there are other people reading this content, there are other people interfacing with it, referencing it, and you're the source of that content, and suddenly you start rising in non-sponsored rankings. But this takes time. It's not something you can just turn on with dollars. You actually have to work on it. There's other different measurement tools like Moz that you need to use to measure how you're doing in that relative to your competitors. But it's certainly a valuable part, and a cheap way from an expense standpoint, but expensive on a labor-intensive standpoint to get your messaging out successfully and build business. So at a very high level, we can go into a lot greater depth on all three of those topics, but at a very high level, those are probably the 3 or 4 big ways that companies attract consumerism online. They either pay for media space for clicks, they're buying lead aggregation directly, or they're branding and bringing people in exclusively through social media and search engine optimization and content. There's one more thing on content, by the way, that's relative for those of you who are in that space. We're actually making this change on our website right now. Content's relative to how relative is your website to what the consumer is searching for. But there's one more thing that's changing in Google Analytics, and it's how deep and how long does the customer spend on your site. And one of the things you might consider, if you ever see these articles now online that are very popular, are the top 10 cities in America to live in, or the top 10 SUVs you might want to drive, right? So those articles are served up based on who they believe you are and what you might be interested in. But the reason they're served up 10 clicks deep, where I'm clicking past San Francisco to get to Seattle, to get to Boise, to get to Austin, is because Google looks at that and says, oh, look at these consumers that go to that website. They're going 5, 6, 7, 10 pages deep. They're sending a couple. So if you can construct your website for search engine optimization with content and proper consumer action, those are some of the things you'd want to do.
That's interesting.
So let's take a look at what you need essentially for some of these different technology standpoints for what you might need. So landing pages. Landing pages are uniquely different than your normal website. For the purposes of pay-per-click campaigns, I want you to think of your website as your business card. If somebody wants to go reference you, they want to know all about your staff, or your mortgage glossary of terms, and all this ancillary information that typically is in your mortgage or real estate website, great. But never under any circumstance, right, direct a pay-per-click campaign straight to your website. You want to take your pay-per-click campaign and you want to put it to a landing page. And the landing page should be a very simple form, maybe some pretty people in front of houses, right? A couple of quotes of why you're the very best lender or real estate agent in your area, your phone number bigger than snot, and a simple capture form. Give me your name, email, phone number, and actually, by the way, for you mortgage people, the best landing pages that I'm seeing convert right now will actually have no more than a couple of questions about the consumer's request or information in about 3 steps, right? I can put in some information about my loan request, maybe property value, loan amount. I can put where I want to get it, and then maybe the 3rd step, and there's different avenues, but really maybe 2-3 steps where you're stepping them through their information and information about their loan request. Those seem to be converting the very best. But here's why. All right, the why you need a landing page and not that business going to your traditional website. A good number of your consumers are shopping during the day, right? And they're going to get in your website, and if it doesn't essentially do what it's supposed to and say either call me right now or submit your loan request, they are going to start reading about mortgage terms. They are going to go look at about us and about our team. They're going to do that. And you know what happens right when they do that? Their boss walks behind them and they close their browser. And you just lost whatever, 5, 10, it depends on your advertising. You just lost something you paid for and you didn't convert. So when you're paying for the clicks, you want to get them in an environment where they really have some limited choices about what they can do. They can validate you're a good professional. They can see some information that's relative to the request, but really the primary thing they can do there is call you or submit information. If you don't do that, you're going to lose business through your website like a sieve. Your website, however, if you're going to do SEO or blogging or content, should be very rich with information. And oh, by the way, after I take my pay-per-click consumer through my top funnel, my landing page funnel, whatever that funnel looks like, I'm certainly going to get to say thank you for more information about my company. Come visit this, right? But the website is a completely different animal, right? It's where I'm gonna do video. It's where I'm gonna do blogging. It's where I'm gonna put relative information that might add to my SEO. And by the way, here's a little tip for you guys on video. If you post your video to YouTube, right, and you have your own YouTube channel, we do, realize that YouTube is transcribing the video into search engine content behind the scenes, and that every word that you speak about your product or service is now the property of YouTube. YouTube owns it, right? You post it there, it's free posting, but guess who's getting the SEO? So my advice to you is when you release a video for your blogging purposes, that you post it on your website and transcribe it on your website first, right? You can basically put the transcription in a tag behind the video, so it's like, and put it there for some, for our deaf, for people with hearing disabilities, whatever, click here, right? And now all of a sudden your text is there ready for somebody who is hearing impaired, and you also got all the SEO for it. Do that and keep it there until your website is crawled before you put it up on YouTube. So there's a couple of things about different types of web properties you might need based on where your traffic is coming from and how you're directing the traffic to yourself. All right, so question for everybody. I'm running a mortgage brokerage. I'm running a real estate company. I'm running a mortgage bank. I've got loan officers who are standing by, and I've identified some traffic sources. Right, we're gonna turn the faucet on, and I've got my website. Right, so this is a question that I'd like if you guys are handy on your little keypads. Do you have what you need? Are you ready to go forward with scalable information in that? And if so, just tell me yes. And if not, tell me why not. If anybody can type in there, I'm going to give it a couple minutes to see what people think here and see how many people are paying attention.
I got a question here. If you want to field one real
Sure,
quick,
go ahead.
I don't think is applicable to what you just asked, but they're saying how often are websites crawled and how can we tell?
So we're going to get into Google Analytics in a minute, but you can tell how often your website is crawled by the number of pages reviewed. You'll see it. You can also submit your website, and if you pay, right, if you pay certain search engines, they will crawl your website with a certain frequency. So you can basically say, hey, I want this type of business subscription for my website, and I want to know that it's crawled every so often. So you can periodically then post to your website, know that within a certain cycle what you posted has been crawled, and then upload it to other channels where if they're transcribing your videos, you are the original source of content.
Okay, so here we go. One person to answer your question says yes. I guess Mike is ready. Then I have a no, scripts and collateral material, and an email follow-up campaign. I have a no. I need a darn good CRM that manages my lead gen. Boy, you might be able to help me with that, huh, Adam? The next one is no. Compliance seems to shoot things down when I try to do something out of the norm. And I've got all kinds of them here. I mean, I've been told my website's
Okay. Hey,
outdated.
that's great feedback. Let's go with those. I apologize, I'm missing
Okay,
it. So compliance. By the way, compliance is like corporate attorneys. Uh, they're paid to say no, right? Realize
right.
your compliance guys, your corporate attorneys. It's like their box literally looks like this. Do we have to do this? Yes or no? Could there be risk if we do anything? That's almost always yes, right?
Right.
Then my default answer is no. So compliance folks, if anybody wants to go down the line of compliance, just one of my backgrounds was I was the mortgage commissioner for in the state of Washington for a good number of years. I was the chairman of that, and I was the highest person out of the private sector, essentially industry, that worked with regulators to craft policy. So we're pretty strong on compliance inside a little old loan tech. If you guys want to set up a compliance meeting at some point to talk about compliance, I'm happy to talk to your compliance people and see if I can get them over their axe. Not promising anything, but it's something we do every day. But the person who said yes, I'm terribly sorry, but that is the incorrect answer. The biggest mistake I've seen lenders made, when I started doing this myself, the biggest mistake I made, some of the reasons Loan Tech exists is from the learning experience of those mistakes. The biggest mistake I've seen guys do is they'll go and they'll throw thousands of dollars at lead supply because they've got a sales staff and they've got a website and they get ahead of themselves and they don't have the proper management tools to run their campaigns and measure their effectiveness, or in some cases even to properly engage the consumer. So to those of you that said lead management systems and CRMs and other technical pieces, we're going to go down the line of some of the things that you really need to be successful. So thank you very much for your input on that, you guys that put your questions in. Let's go down and keep rolling through here. So what do I need then? Well, one of the very first things you need is Google Analytics. Anything that hits your website, how often it's crawled, where your traffic's coming from, am I converting leads, am I not converting leads, where are my clicks, where are my leads coming from? It is absolutely essential that you put Google Analytics code in your site. And everything I just described, this is what you can get the information, is free. Now you can also get more information on some of their paid pro versions, but to a large extent, what you need from a basic understanding to manage your effort, you can get free by putting Google Analytics in your site. The other thing you need to do is A/B testing. A/B testing, for those who aren't familiar with it, is if you go back to the subject and landing pages. Maybe I've got my landing page, it's got my pretty people, and I've got my button that says submit your information here, and it's red at the bottom. It's 1 inch by 1/2 inch. And you think, hey, I'm converting okay. I'm getting, whatever, 8% or 10%. 10% of every click that I get on this landing page is converting, and you know what? That's pretty good, all right? That's not bad. If you get 1 in 10 people that click through that act on your site, that's pretty good. But A/B testing says, I'm going to move that red button up into the upper right of center. It's going to go green, right? I'm going to change the font from serif to sans serif, or you make subtle changes. You don't make wholesale changes to your landing page, right? And all of a sudden you find out that, wow, I made that button more prominent. I changed this element of a page that was already good, and now I'm getting 13% conversion. That's a pretty strong impact, right? So A/B testing is something when you put these properties out, don't just put out a landing page and go, I'm done now, right? You could actually typically start with 2 complete sets of imagery and 2 different messages and just play back and forth the message and the imagery to get which of those 2 combinations work better. Then once you get the combination of that, you start working on refining that. But that's an ongoing thing to make sure that, again, the money you're spending is actually converting optimally. Your landing pages, your web environments are your front line and your most important measurable property that you have. Those of you that said CRM and lead management, we're going to talk about that here in just a second, but absolutely you need to engage your customers with personal information that they view as exclusive and targeted. It builds trust and validation about that, hey, this isn't some generic email that everybody gets, it's about them. And you need to be able to use the lead management to manage those records and the information that comes out of your CRM from the time they're pre-contacted to the time you're talking to them, to the time you have your application, the time they're processing, and so on, and keep them engaged and keep them moving next through the entire mortgage process. So here's another quick question and answer. I know somewhere in the 135 people I see right now that are dialed in, somewhere in those 135 people, some of you have done internet leads before. You've bought leads. Tell me what went wrong. Just real quickly, were they crappy? Were they oversold? Were they not valid? I want to hear it from you guys. I want to know what your personal experience is. If you bought internet leads that didn't work, I want to know if we can get 2 or 3 responses in. And Frank, tell me if you got something in early.
I got Rick, junk.
Junk. Okay. I can work with it.
I've got lack of follow-up. I got oversold. I got too many people sold the same leads. Took time to nurture. I got too busy. I got bogus. I got oversold.
Okay.
Leads would never respond. Unreliable. My follow-up sucked.
Okay. We got all those. So let's talk about that. So in this slide, we've got this lovely young woman who's sitting there shopping on her couch, right? She looks very happy. She finds herself into a lead farm where she enters her information, gets very little in return, and overnight she ages 20 years, gets a migraine because you got 6 jackalopes that are blowing her phone up. All going like a bunch of Finding Nemo seagulls. Me, mine. So this is the biggest part of how the internet used to work. Now, granted, a lot of the lead gen in the internet still works this way, and I know some people that make very good livings at being one of those 6 guys. It's a lot harder than it has to be, and generally speaking, most of the consumers that do this don't go through here again. Now, here's one thing about lead buyers, right? You guys who want to participate in that, that's great. We got software solutions for you that make this better, but one of the things that you need to know is if a lead vendor, and not all of them, but most of them say, hey, we only sell this poor gal's record 6 times, but in your area, there are only 4 paying mortgage brokers or bankers that bought this record. Guess what? These 2 guys might be 2 completely other lead vendors who are going to sell that 4 and 6 times. So that in a short sum number of hours from the time she puts her request in, you might have got it first, but you know what? If you're one of the guys that got it a little bit cheaper, a little bit later, a little bit oversold, you quite literally might be the 12th or 20th caller that has dialed her up. Good luck with that. It's you can do it. There are people that are really good at it, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's a better way, and the consumer appreciates what we're going to next. So yesterday, people would go into that experience by just hitting the dancing man. Anybody remember the dancing man? He'd sit and flash, go back and forth on the side banner, right? Well, online consumers, they were kind of deer in the headlights. They didn't really require a lot of validation, and they do have some things in common with infants, poodles, and squirrels. Today's consumer is a little different, right? Your millennials are a little more savvier. They're not going to be putting their information into a website without receiving some validation. They want an online shopping experience, much like you might go buy a printer on Amazon, right? Any of you guys want to go buy a printer for your desk in your office, you're going to go on to whatever, Newegg, Amazon. You're going to find some printer, it might be an HP. It's going to have all the features and the price point. You get some information about the buyer, and what you get is you get enough valid information about that purchase that you can actually make a purchase decision and acquire that printer. I'm going to tell you right now, mortgage people, if your website does not facilitate what I just described in any way, shape, or form, if it's not mobile compliant, if you can't take a 30-year-old millennial who's about to go buy his first house and give him that kind of experience, you're not meeting today's value prop. This is the kind of thing that we specialize in. Here's an example of a CRM that comes out of Loan Tech. This is an actual lead out of Michael King. Michael King's a longtime user of our software. He's been around. This is Carmen. Carmen is an actual lead. Now, the top part of the CRM looks like every other CRM, right? Hey, thank you for your inquiry. I'm going to call you. You call me. But this bottom piece, and I don't know if you can see this on your screen, this grid says, hey, this is a $366,000 loan, 75% LTV, purchase with a 760 FICO. You know what that is? That's Carmen's loan. And frankly, that's probably more information than Carmen's ever seen about her loan that she's been looking for. If Carmen clicks these links, she can pull down amortization schedules, she can look at payments, she can pull down closing costs. And the most popular link that we have in our emails say, come get my lowest rates here. Now, between you and I, those were Carmen's best execution rates across his banking platform and his margins, right? But what we really want to do is we want to focus on the cycle of conversion. We want to get Carmen from wherever she started online to get to where she can really get deep with our customer. And so what she can do is Carmen can now go and shop here herself. And you know what? Carmen might actually go in and determine that, I really didn't need a 30-year fix. I want a 20-year fix. But now you're empowering her to get this information. She can get everything from your closing cost, your APR, to terms, everything in this little site. And just like you buy that printer, Carmen is now able to make a decision about transacting with you. And oh, by the way, what can she do here? She can call you or she can submit the request. Now, the one thing that happens in these responses, if she comes in and she submits a request in this way, we tell the loan officer exactly what she says about her transaction, what she wants to do, what kind of product, what kind of price point she wants. And the conversation starts completely different than you started with the 6 people dialing going, hey, would you like to talk about a loan? You're actually saying, hey, you just wanted to talk to me about a 30-year fix today at 4 1/8, and I just wanted to make sure we get all the information that you want to get on that. Let's get started. She's already made an election, and oh, by the way, the nice thing about this, she never actually contacts you on this form unless her value proposition and sort of the trust and validation that she needs as a consumer is met in your offer. By the way, this little screen that you see up here is excellent for your builder and agent referral business. Frank, I know this has never happened to you, but if you were in a jam and half in the bag at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night in one of your jam sessions, and one of your best agents called you up because she had Betty Homebuyer, and she wanted to write an offer, but Betty didn't know, right, if she could qualify or what her payments might be or, what the closing costs would be. Your agents, if you give them this link or put this link embedded on their own website, your agents can actually pre-qualify their home buyers in the field, even if they can't get a hold of you. Obviously, we all want to talk to our borrowers if we can, but if they can't, it helps them write more office. We've got people that use this on little iPad tablets that are in the sites, like the builder sites of their home builders, right? So the agent can literally pull up pricing, know that they can get that home buyer over their hurdle of what their payment might look like or what their fee structure, and they can write an offer instead of waiting to get a hold of you next Monday. And by the way, then of course that's passed directly to you, the lender. So this technology works very good for traditional lines of business as well.
I got real quick. We got a little question coming in here. I think
Sure.
that it's a good, timely question because I was kind of thinking the same thing. So we have Greg saying, "Hey, so do we have to offer rates that are lowest or equal to the lowest rates to succeed?" And can you just, real briefly, I think
Sure.
what people need to understand is, I think here it is up on your up on the screen right now, I believe. But these guys are in total control of. I mean, they can bring in their the pricing from their funding sources into the
Yep.
system, and then they program in all their own margins, et cetera. So
Correct.
essentially, to answer Greg, I mean, he would be obviously delivering his best rate based on all of his parameters, right?
Correct. So there's two things. I think there was something else in this question that maybe I picked up that I think it was in there as well, right? So there's a couple different ways of doing this. So yes, this type of pricing engine, to going down the line of what you just described, LoanTech has a full and very robust pricing engine. We track 300 Wall Street aggregators with daily and intraday pricing, and run best execution across a lot of them. We produce over 2 million consumer-facing price responses every day. That was what we did in December of this last year.
Huh.
So we put this pricing in, and we were doing it. But when we get to the point of how we do it, once you've got this customer, your pricing comp, not everybody's competitive for true online origination in the sense of a rate table. So if you think about the lenders that are in Zillow's rate table, or maybe LendingTree Loan Explorer, or Bankrate's rate table, right? These guys are high volume, low margin. Now I know some small brokers that do extremely well at that, right? They kill it because they've got small shops, and by the way, they don't have compliance guys and other guys going, well, no, we're not operating Johnny massive company on that margin. But for some of the larger companies that are like, hey, I can never compete with those rate table guys with my rate structure. That's okay. You don't have to. Right? You've got your traditional lines of business. You can use some of these technologies to get exclusive engagement into your rate structure, right? Where you're not competing against those really thin margin rate guys. The important part is that you're using this type of technology to capture those clients and those referrals and all those different contacts you can get online from all of your referral sources, and give them a kind of online experience that they can engage with. If your real estate agent goes and talks to a millennial tomorrow and says, hey, I want you to go check out Johnny Loan Officer, right? You better be able to meet his validation. If she doesn't capture his information, and if your website doesn't capture and you haven't talked to him, you got a hole in a bucket, right? So this is all about getting your stuff up to snuff in a contemporary fashion, whether you're buying leads or buying individual clicks, or whether you're participating in rate tables. This is still the type of technology that you need to meet today's value prop.
Right. Yeah.
Did I ramble too much? I'm sorry.
No, I totally get it. Yeah. Just a reminder though, we are at 40 minutes in. So
okay, 5 minutes. All right, we're gonna chunk through some of this then real quick. So we give you some interesting engagement tools that no other feature does. Oh, by the way, on this screen, we're the only ones that seamlessly integrate all 4 of these pieces. Mobile website applications that are fully customizable, APIs, lead management CRM. We're deeper in this consumer direct suite than anybody else. But we also like to tell you what's happening. So I call this my fish finder graph. This is out of our CRM. This top red line right here is all activity that occurs on your automatic emails. I call this gray line fish under the boat. We know these people are opening the emails, right? But this bottom line right here, these are the people that are clicking and actively shopping on your links. And I'm going to set the hook on these fish first. If I click into that line in our system, I can open up and get right to those consumers that are shopping as of that time and contact them. And then I work back to these people that I know actually have a pulse, and I look at and I go right to the lead record with all their notes from the screen. We're gonna go into KPI at a very high level. Essentially, in a longer class, anybody has questions, we look at key performance indicators in 3 ways. There's always some things that are always positive. There's some KPIs that are always negative. There's some things that are neutral that just may need to be shifted. But we help you look at KPI in terms of different stages, what's happening to your assigned leads you're in conversation with. We break things up from qualified versus converted and so on, all the way through closed. So inside of LoanTech, we can look at how many leads are in a certain person's lap, how many of those leads are closing. I can look at where my low-hanging fruit is. By the way, qualified and converted. Qualified is anybody who's completed an application. Yeah, those people have completed an app. That's great. But we like to divide the people that are leaning into a converted category. So if you've got a borrower that says, hey, this looks great, that just saved me $300 a month, I'm going to talk to my wife, let's talk again tomorrow, right? I'm going to split that guy out as a separate category, both for messaging and follow up. Then somebody's like, yeah, we'll get back to you. We're not really looking for a couple, we're going to treat those two customers differently. I also like to look at where my business is coming from and where it's closing, right? So anybody we talk to on the phone, and this, by the way, this is our snapshot. We close about 1 in 3 lenders that see our software that go through a demonstration or talk to us. Our website leads, just general inquiries, about 7%. Direct referrals from lead partners, 53%. If you go down the line, you're going to want to know what you're paying for and how it performs. I'm going to skip through some of these other 15 minutes of different examples. And I'm going to go to the last thing I want to talk to you about for managers who go down this line, right? Realize your loan officers, your real estate agents, they have the pressure to produce. I have seen both of these over my years. I'm not sure which is worse, but I just want to realize, let everybody know, listen to your processors, right? When you go down this and you start getting leads, you start getting and putting your loan officers are going to be excited, right? They want to be good, but make sure that on the back end you're listening to your processors to make sure that you got quality business going in. And for those of you managed, I'm sure you've seen both of these, right? Independent of known qualification issues. If I put the file in processing, I pray I might get paid, right? Or the other guy, I really don't have any idea what qualifications there are represented, but if I throw the file at processing, I get paid. Just listen to your processors because you're going to put leads in front of people. Some of them are going to have different trades skills, and that's part of the management process as well. And finally, just to wrap up on time, Frank, if you do all of these things, you can lead by intelligent design. You can grow your business. And frankly, from the loan tech side, it's what we do. We'd be happy to help.
Okay, so there's a few questions that are here right now, and let's dive into these real quick because I think we go through these, then it's going to answer questions for a lot of people. So this is Jason. He says, does this pricing engine have the ability to ask subprime questions? So on that qualifying checklist, I guess, like self-employed, 12 months bank statements, BK seasoning, short sale, foreclosure seasoning, stated income, asset depletion. Does pricing engine have the ability to ask subprime questions like this? Is that something that can be structured within your system?
I'm gonna say probably not into the specifics. And here's the thing. So could you modify a pricing to do it? Yeah, I mean I could go to my engineers and say, hey, we want to put some flags in for these different types of things, right?
Right.
You talk to an engineer, it's like, well, how much money do you have and when do you want it, right? How much time? But realize this. One of the number one fails that an internet consumer will botch, right? There's really two. One is their income. I make $250,000 a year. No, you don't. You're a self-employed
Right.
Loan officer. After
Right.
taxes, your adjusted gross is 125. You get the. So they always screw up their income online to a large. Probably their biggest fail of online consumers is how they calculate their income, or they overstate their commissions, or they understate their overtime. You name it. That's the least viable. So what you want to do when an online consumer is you want to ask them up front, hey, what do you think you make, right? Very simply, but don't get too deep on the consumer experience. Frankly, the simpler you keep your short form to give them the information, the better. The more questions typically that you go down, or the more you put in front of the customer to get to some sort of validation, the more often you have them disconnect and break out.
I guess what could help this guy though is even using the parameters that are already set there. If he has subprime funding sources that are providing him the feed of their rates or whatever, right? It's still based on a loan to value and a FICO score and you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
couldn't it just be like, yes, here's what your rate would be? You know what I mean? It would just
correct.
show them a higher rate, you know what I mean, or whatever the case would be, right? Because the
Well,
next question, just let me
what you
finish.
really want.
The
I'm sorry.
next
Go ahead.
question, the next question is going to clarify this, and this is from Patricia. It's like, for clarity, is the pricing engine based on each broker's fees and own setup? And the answer to that is yeah. It's all. That's what this is all about. Being able to give this experience to a consumer to where they get that validation of kind of going through a process themselves, but it's all based on these guys' personal uh, um, um, how do I say
Absolutely.
it? Yeah, expound upon that.
Well, so take an example from a mortgage broker's standpoint, right? You've got your different your wholesalers, right, and you've got your different comp margins, right, on top of their base pricing. So you've got your comp, and they also have their different delivery fees, right? One's delivery fee might be $12.95 all in, or they've got underwriting, you name it. They've got different appraisal fees, they've got different tax flood search, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So when we're running best execution, we're looking at the data points that drive the price result. What's the FICO? What's the loan to value? What's the purpose, purchase, rate and term, cash out? What's the property type? What's the occupancy? All those basic tags. And then we conjure up all of the programs from your wholesale lenders that might actually apply to those fit. And then we go right down to the fee set, right? If you've got two lenders that are both at 4%, and one of them basically is $500 cheaper than the other at 4%, that's your best X. And frankly, from a regulatory standpoint, that is your anti-steering, right? That's your anti-steering safeguard. You gave, now careful though, because it may not be the lender you want to deal with, but if it's a lender you don't want to deal with, then you probably shouldn't, from a compliance sideline, have them in there. I know a lender, they used our software successfully, and they got in a little bit of hot water with a lead provider because they had one lender, which I'm going to leave nameless, that was competitively priced, but it wasn't the obvious lowest price in conventional loans, so much that this other lender was. And so when the consumer went to a given domain, they said, I want this rate and fee that you quoted me here, and the loan officer said, I can't give you that rate and fee, when in fact he could. He simply didn't want to because it was much easier to deal with the other lender that wasn't priced as well. But yes, we take all those things into account and give the borrower the best deal that you want. Now, if you don't want to hold a given lender out, don't put them in best execution. That's the rule of thumb.
Okay. There's two questions back to back. We're going to answer them the one time, because one person's saying is, I'm a little brokerage. I got 1 to 2 LOs. Does this make sense for me? And the next person is saying, my company has 2,000 loan originators, or no, has 800 loan officers in it. Will this work for us? So why don't you touch base on that, and then go over pricing? What does this cost? Because that's the next one. Is like, what does all this cost us?
So generally, did everything that I just showed you, like the whole thing, website integration and lead management, and CRM, and best execution pricing, and it's deeper actually than what I was able to show you in 45 minutes. A branch can get all of those in a seat license for $395. Right? So literally, we have individual LOs that pay us $395, and you're like, wait a minute, that's like $4,800 a year. And you're right, but if we help you write even one, let's say you do nothing online, but it helps you write 1 or 2 more deals a month from an agent because you gave them easier access and help them write more offers, right? Even if you're a traditional guy, it'll pay for itself.
I could see emailing this to all my past clients, going, "Hey man, if you're thinking about doing something, just click here. Just go in here, and you can put some information in, see if it looks good to you. If it does, I'll get a hold of you. I mean, you could probably, if I blasted this to 500 past clients, I'd probably originate 20 deals on the spot. You know what I mean?
Frank, can spam compliance, right? You can, unless they've opted in, you can only hit your past clients up in the last 2 years, right? But if you've got a 2-year past client database or prospects that you haven't transacted with 6 months, if you take that list, I have a guy that does a Betty Crocker recipe every month, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be like Frank's recipe for success, right? And once a month he pastes some like lemon meringue pie in there, but at the bottom of that, our database has the last loan elements of the loan they did. We've got their last deal. So every month he's serving his clients up with his pricing as of that time. So they might not necessarily be talking to him about the refinance or thinking about him in their new purchase, but he's actually keeping himself in front of his past client book of business every month with a simple recipe.
Right. Yeah.
So by the way, for those operations to scope and scale,
the big
an average seat license in our company that does everything once the branch has a license is $45. We have everything from individual loan officers that are successful with us and one-man brokerage shops to large companies like Loan Depot, right, that are doing $3 billion a month in origination.
Okay, so I get it. So you get like a branch buys it for $395 a month, but they've got 10 guys and they all want to be a part of it. Those 10 guys each pay $45 a month.
Yeah, yep.
Is that how
And
it
we've
works?
got, look, yeah, we've got different
That's great.
packages. I mean, it goes a lot. We try and on average, when most of these branches are buying a CRM over here for, whatever, 30, $40 a month, and then they're buying a pricing engine for
Yeah,
50, $60 a month. And then God forbid if you actually have custom website integrations for some of the pricing, it's bloody expensive. We typically are a third to half the cost replacing those services with Loan Tech.
that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Any other questions, guys? Because I don't see any others coming in. Oh, here. What is the second biggest consumer internet fail?
What is the second
I
biggest what?
don't know. It says, what is the second biggest consumer internet fail for Adam? I'm not sure I
Actually,
understand the question.
so actually, it's actually the management of your Salesforce. So here's the thing: you can do all these things, and you can get in. This is kind of one of the KPIs section that we talked about. We skipped over because that was a lot of management stuff, right?
Right, right.
But the next biggest fail I see is people go through great lengths as managers, and they build these great baby boxes of internet traffic, but they it takes a certain kind of loan officer to scale this out. Your traditional guy who wants to go out on the golf course and schmooze in the bar with his agents and stuff, he may suck at this, right?
Right.
You might have a young, hungry kid that's just hungry to learn, and he's fearless, and he's like, I'm going to learn this. But you have to be able to realize when you look at that one screen about who my loan officers are and what's happening to what's going in there. You have to make some assessments about who you feed, what you feed them, and how much. I got a great story if I can wrap up on this, Frank. I know we're pressing time. One of the first customers I ever had. Uh, I think it was his last $2,000 in 2008. And he was like, this has got to work. He is now a national sales director for a large mortgage company, still running Loan Tech 7 years or 8 years later.
Wow.
Just to give you a power of having the measurement of measuring your sales force, he said, "Hey, help me with, help me. I talk to my clients. We give them, hey, what are you going to do this year, and how can we help you?" He said, "Well, you look at my sales staff." So I looked at his sales staff, and everything looked pretty normal. But I had this one loan officer where she had this like 4 or 5 times higher on the same lead channel. Every 4 or 5 times, it went to bad dead lead. And I told him, I said, Steve, I said, you're going to have to watch this one. I said because I said, I think what's happening here is she's talking to just as many people as everybody else, but she's either not interested in doing her job and helping them, or she doesn't know how to help them. So literally, you're losing 4 times the return on this person. You're either going to need to train her, right? You're going to do work with her, or you're going to have to move her out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for that young lady, she promoted herself outside the company, but you have to have those measurements. The biggest fail I see, the second biggest fail, is just not managing your investment properly for success.
Okay. All right. So let's wrap this up. And again, there's a few things here that I'll jump on. Again, guys, we will get you this recorded webinar. Everybody's asking, can we get a copy? And then we have one guy, or Kenny, he's saying, and this might have been the marketing that you guys were doing on your side. You're saying, hey man, what's up with the handout? Is there a handout? Were you going to give these
Yes,
guys a handout?
and actually, Frank, remember we were
Yeah.
trying to trade emails back and forth this
Yes.
morning?
Yes.
We have a Microsoft small business server in the office that I use here, and it was you're doing the Bill Gates restart it, kick me out, and send it again, right?
Yeah.
So we had to restart our internal domestic service, which, by the way, is not the one that generates any of our CRM for those who were
Right.
thinking
Don't
that.
panic. Yeah. Don't panic.
That is not the enterprise software.
Right.
No, it's just our local email server.
Right.
So I was trying to email that to you as a handout to post up to the site, but there is a PDF version, so all attendees here, I will make sure, Frank, if you don't send it, I will send it. We have about a 20-page booklet that goes along with this class, and if you ever see us in person at Mortgage Mastermind this year, realize we'll have those printed and available for you there as well.
Yeah, so now you guys go ahead and blast it out to him. You'll have the list. You can email everybody. Another guy, Paul, he says, hey, man, this is a lot to absorb. Can I get a one-on-one consultation? I told him, of course you can. You guys will be reaching out to everybody, basically.
Yep.
So with that, there's a few more questions. But again, guys, if we don't answer your questions, don't panic. Loan Tech will get to every one of you and answer every one of your questions because we have your questions recorded here on the system. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and sign off, Adam, if that's okay with you.
It's fine with me. Frank, and everybody in attendance, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks again.
You bet. So we'll go ahead and sign off, guys. Again, guys, thanks for being here. Lone Tech will be in touch with you, and you guys will be able to ask them any other questions you might have and start getting involved with them.